Hello, my friend. We have covered 9 steps in the journey. And today we are going to learn the 10th, the step number 10 out of the 40 steps. And I gave the title of this step, Learn, Live, Work with Discernment and Dispassion from moment to moment. What that means? When the mind is switched off from this wisdom, you will be attacked by the anxiety, stress, duality, conflict. I use the term switched off. And how long it takes you to switch on the light in your room, switch on the fan in your room, fraction of a second. So when you have completed the 9 steps with a clear understanding, your level of awareness goes up. Means self-awareness is at the peak. And when self-awareness is at the peak, the mind is switched off, means the mind is going back to the same old habit of problem, of anxiety, of duality and conflict, because that knowledge and experience and the practice is behind you of the previous 9 steps. You can switch on instantly. What I said, how long it takes you to switch on to peace and happiness, love and wisdom. First point of understanding is switch on and switched off. Switched off happens automatically. Switching on is a choice in the intellect. You make a choice by thinking. In the intellect is purified by the 9 steps before. So switching on puts you into the mode of real self. Switching on. What happens? Inside you have that peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Outside there are problems. Problems will remain outside. You do whatever you want to do. So by switching on, these problems do not touch you. You remain untouched. And that is what the step 10 educates us. So step number 10 takes your intellect, or I would say it awakens in your intellect a power, a wealth. And what is that power and the wealth? That is the discernment and dispassion. This is what we are going to understand today in the first part of the step number 10. Step number 10. The knowledge of the reality is here and now, at this moment when you are listening to me. And that reality is within you. And that reality is permanent peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. And they awaken in you by a choice. And that choice takes birth in your intellect. And when the intellect is pure, to awaken to that choice is easy, effortless, natural. You don't need any practice. And the moment you awaken to that choice, in spite of problems outside in the world, in spite of many challenges, in spite of the backlog, the past impressions, the past events, you live into that state of permanent peace and happiness. Step number 10 helps you to know what it knows. What our mind wants to see but do not see is the problem. What it means when things are not done according to our mind, we feel disappointed, dejected, frustrated. So, what is the main problem here? Our mind says everyone should follow us. We see that our mind alone is right. When we see our mind alone is right, our master says it is because of raga and dvesha. What is raga and dvesha? Attachment and detachment. Go back to the previous 9 steps that you have learned. How to get rid of this raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes, attachment and detachment. Why it is important to get rid of it. And now you are free. What it takes? Your intellect makes a choice. I am the peace and happiness, love and wisdom deeper inside. Then what happens? You have already made a choice. You have switched on. Now your life is in the mode of real self, real nature, here and now, at any given moment, in your personal, professional, and social life. The suffering is gone. Pain is gone. Anxiety is gone. Duality is gone. Blame and complaint is gone. Step number 10 will take you to the next higher stage. That is what we are learning. And what is that higher stage? What is that higher stage? That you instantly switch on, whether you are in the kitchen or in the restroom or lying on the bed or communicating with a person in your professional or social or your personal life. You live into that state, and that switch off the entire cause and the symptoms of suffering. So when we understand that when our mind wants to see but do not see is caused by the likes and dislikes, attachment and detachment, and the mind forces us to see the world the way the mind wants to see, is the problem. So the next question comes, can we change the world outside? So when the mind is facing outside in the world of people, place, objects and the things, we want to see the world to follow what we say, think, speak and act. Is it possible? It is not. What is the problem? Now see, we are moving little deeper. You have to listen to this again and again. So what is the problem? We do not see our real nature. That is why we want to change the world outside according to me. But why? We have forgotten our real nature. What it takes to recall your real nature after doing the 9 steps? Switch on, here and now. What happens? The mind drops the blame, complaint, reaction, disaction, dislike, pains instantly. What should we do? You see that? What should we do? We should understand our mind. We should understand the tantrums of our mind. Tantrum is nothing but the mind starts living in attachment and detachment. We should question if we can change the world, or we should follow the other options. What is that other option? Let me change the mind to change my life, and let me discover the permanent peace and happiness in our life. So the step number 10 is all about living here and now. Did I tell you switch on, switch off? It will not take even fraction of a second. The intellect says switch on. That is what you do. So you stand up, switch on and the fan is on, the light is on. Did we become mature seeker? Did we become mature seeker? And if we have become the mature seeker, we know. Switch on, done. So we will continue to understand from where we have just left. Reality is that the world is constantly changing. The reality is that the world is constantly changing. We want to fix the world, make the world steady. The world cannot be made steady, it is constantly changing. Thoughts and ideals, cultures, conditioning. Any old thought may always be not right, and any new thought may always be not wrong. Old thoughts sticks to us because of the culture, society, conditioning in the mind. We need to break this conditioning. When and how? here and now. Within a fraction of a second, switch on and switch off. I have a pain. Yes, I know, I recognize it. Switch on. This is the body. I am not the body. I do not have the pain. The first part of the switch on instantly awakens in my intellect. Second part. Now the second step or second part in that, I am the real self. I am full of permanent peace and happiness. That moves in the intellect because switched on. Third part, let me take care what happened to the pain. Let me take the best care of the pain outside. Fourth step. What is the fourth point? I realize that the suffering is not there. Suffering takes place in the mind. And the pain may be in the body. So let me take care of the pain in the state of no suffering. Take another example. Someone says, you are crazy. So I instantly switch on. To whom he is saying crazy? To this body. I'm not the body. After all, he is seeing me through the body. 1. Nobody can give me a certificate that I am crazy. Because he or she who told me crazy might be suffering from some mental problem. That is why he is giving me a certificate. That is why he is giving me a certificate. Oh, it is because of this. And the problem is gone. So you see how that happens. How that happens? It happens only when our goal of life is to live, discover the real nature. We don't make any goal outside. We don't make any person as our goal. If you make your goal outside, it will frustrate you. It will bring the failure. Why we make the goal outside? Return again. Remember instantly. The mind is switched off. So what happens in switching off mode? Attachment and detachment. Switch on. You are already in the state of meditation here and now. You are continuing the journey in peace and happiness. So it happens by seeking in the intellect. Seeking in the intellect means you are thinking about these principles. Seeking means your goal is clear. Seeking means your goal is to live, work, think, and speak out of the real self, not out of the mind that causes the attachment and detachment. You are aware inside. So mind has a thought, I love my dog. Dog is suffering. I love my dog because the dog gives me the happiness. So you have already switched off. You are in a switching off mode. What it means? I see the happiness outside in the dog. Switch on. Happiness is inside. Dog is suffering. Let me take care of the dog. Suffering is not there. So we are awakening to the wealth in the intellect after 9 steps. Do you see that? So what happens? That sometime the mind, with an intense attachment and detachment, continues to cause the suffering. And then we already have a practices that I have given to you. Continue the practice. Don't miss the practice on a single day. So we have 2 things, seeking and searching. Searching is practice. Seeking is in the intellect, here and now, switch on mode. Are you getting it? Then comes the principles of discernment and dispassion. So the step number 10 is basically the principle of discernment, means viveka, means separating real from the unreal, right from the wrong, good from the bad, where you have to separate in your intellect, in the field of awareness. The wealth of the intellect is discernment, and the greater wealth is dispassion. So in an Eastern wisdom, we say we should apply discernment and dispassion in every thought, in every speech, in our every action. Now see, for example, when we do not apply discernment and dispassion, what happens? Mind moves to what we say a mudha state. What is mudha state? It is madness. What is this? The mind begins the blame, complaint, reaction, frustration. Can I become aware? The mind is in the switch off mode. Switch on. Who switches on? The intellect. Then the intellect enters into separating. No blame, no complaint, no reaction. Why? Because it will cause stress and suffering in my life. Because blaming, complaining, and reaction means the mind is searching peace and happiness outside with the people, things. So you are in a switch on mode. The mind has dropped everything. It is clear. We are not carried away by the thoughts, feeling, and the emotions. We are not in a mudha. Mudha, another meaning, is also forgetfulness state. Forgetfulness is nothing but the switched off. Animals do it. They live at a low level of self-awareness. The animals are highly intelligent, but they live at the low level of self-awareness. They cannot raise their self-awareness. Why? That very intellect is not there inside them to make a choice. You see, that is why a tiger remains the tiger throughout their life. A cow remains the cow. But we have an ability to through that self-awareness can change our destiny, can change our life, can bring an end to the suffering forever. Do you see that point clearly? If you see that point clearly, we can continue the journey, switch on in the switch off mode. A man said to his son, "How crazy you are." Son became angry over the father. "How dare you say that I am crazy?" Now you see, son became angry. Then he is already crazy. He proved himself that he is crazy. He is on a switch off mode. Do you see the point? So when you have perfectly done all the 9 steps, the step 10 teaches you to be in the state of mindfulness here and now. Do you see, the son proved that he is crazy and he is challenging his father in the state of anger that, "How dare you say that you are? I'm angry." Now see, if he switches on the mode in the intellect, then what happens? If he is not crazy, he smiles. He says, "Dad, you cannot give me a certificate of being crazy." We are subjected by the thoughts and the forces from the world outside. And this journey is not to allow those forces to work on me. I should work on them. That is the switch on mode of the intellect, which is awakened to the wealth of discernment. So, how long you live with the intellect with the right knowledge? That is the question. Your mind may say, "You see that, sometime I forget. I miss it. I enter into anxiety. I do the practice. I get out of it." This is a deeper session, even though I'm making it very simpler. So what did you say? Or your mind says, "No, I forget, and then I enter into the stress, and then what happens? I did the practice and I came out of that stress and suffering." So what is this switch on mode? Compare it. Do you forget your name ever? No. So the intellect is always in the switch on mode about your name. Do you ever forget your home? No. Your intellect is on the switch on mode without even thinking. Do you forget your gender? No. You are in the switch on mode all the time. Do you forget which car you own? No. You are always in the switch on mode. Then why you forget that you are in peace and happiness? Why don't you switch on the mode the moment the mind is in the switch off mode? The moment the mind is causing the thoughts of suffering and the stress and anxiety, why don't you go on to the switch off mode? Switch on mode. The mind still contains those impurities, that level of ignorance. That is why we are doing all the 40 steps in the journey. What other factors are responsible that causes this suffering? 3 important steps are required. You have to contemplate and reflect on these 3 steps. What if ignorance is there? You see that? If ignorance is there, what is that? If I do not have the knowledge of the Eastern wisdom, what should I do? I should learn. I should listen to it again and again and again. Then go to the mind, ask, now do you know it? Did you learn it? So the first problem of ignorance is gone. Now you know. What you know? The real self is within you. That is your true nature. That is full of peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Peace, happiness, love and wisdom are not outside. It is within a me. You have learnt it. The second problem, if you have doubt about it. I talked just now that why I am not able to enter into the switch on mode in the intellect, awakening the wealth in the intellect, that is discernment, that takes me away from the suffering within no time. So the first problem, the mind learns and listens and forgets it. So I have to listen and learn again and again and again and again, until that issue is resolved. So the first problem is gone, so I can live into the switch on mode all the time. Clear? Now the second problem comes that there are a lot of doubts, confusions about my real nature. So that also prevents me to live into that switch on mode of peace, of happiness, of love, of wisdom. Did you understand that? Switch on and the switch off mode. So what should I do when I have doubts? What is the solution? Contemplate and reflect again and again after learning and listening. So first step is, I know real self is my peace and happiness. We know it. We know the principle. So once you know the principle, then you sit with eyes closed as the mind goes into the fancies and imagination. So now the mind is going into the mode of contemplation and reflection. A peace and happiness are my essential nature. They are with me 24/7. Why the hell mind causes the suffering in my life? Suffering due to the mind is looking something outside, to an object. It is seeking peace and happiness outside where it is not. This is the contemplation. You are thinking in that level. So when you think in that level, the doubts in the intellect is removed. You have a clarity and conviction. Doubt will lead to lethargy. Now see what happens. If you have a doubt, doubt will make you lethargic, causes indolence and laziness. Laziness says, I will do the practice next time. Next time never comes. Mind says, what the heck? People who do not follow this path are suffering. And I follow this path. That is, I am also suffering. You see the deeper nature of the doubt? That is what happens many a times. Do you see the problem? What is that problem we are solving? Do you know your name? Yes. The intellect is in the switch on mode. Do you know where the house is? Do you know what car you have? Do you know what gender you have? I know all of them. Why you are asking me? Do you know peace and happiness is my nature? No. So I need to contemplate and reflect. A single moment the doubt creeps in your intellect means what the knowledge is sleeping. The doubt will lead to letharginess, indolence, and laziness. Will drive your mind crazy, will take your mind away from the principle. Do you see the problem? Then you compare. What do you compare? You see that I am doing lot of practices, I still have problem. People are not doing any issue, they are still have a problem. So why should I do the practice? Now the mind is poisoning your intellect. Do you see that? What the heck, why should I remember my name? Doubt. So that is the second problem. Pay attention. Listen to it again and again. Make a bullet point. Write to me. So, we will discuss again whether you have understood these steps clearly in the step number 10. Step number 10 is simple. Switch on, switch off mode. Switch on mode, but through the intellect, through the dispassion, through the discernment in the intellect, which is a wealth. How to enter into the switch on mode? Instrument is intellect, and the quality of that intellect is discernment that separates the real from the unreal. How it can happen, when it can happen, how it can happen, when it can happen, where it can happen, how it can happen. Knowledge practice, you become aware. When it can happen, anytime, anywhere. You are in the kitchen preparing a tea, you are in the restroom, you are in the bed, you are living your professional life or personal life, my friend. It is here and now. Switch on mode. So now comes the third challenge. We are learning, we are understanding that I remember my name all the time, I know my house all the time, I know my car all the time, I know what I am doing all the time, I know my gender all the time, but why don't I know my real nature all the time? In those cases, switch on mode. In knowing my real self, I move on, switch on, switch off, switch on, switch off. Switch off caused by the mind in ignorance. First problem. Second is we have a doubt, we have solved it. Third is experience is not there. Experience is not there. What should I do? I should practice, 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 practice. So we have solved all the three challenges so that the intellect remains in the switch on mode. I live into that awareness where I can reflect my real self all the time, which is of the nature of peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Can we go deeper in this session? Let us go a little deeper. So question comes, how to know the real self? Can we know the real self through my sense organ? Like I see the object, people, things, places. What is real self? This is real me. This is I am. Can you have two I am? One I am is looking, one I am is outside, other I am is here. This I am is looking at I am. That is how the sense organ receives the knowledge. It is not possible. There cannot be two I. There is only one I am. Are you getting it? I believe you understand after learning all the 9 steps. So what is the conclusion? I cannot know my real self through the sense organs. People challenge. Oh, show me the real self in front of me. So it means you want them to divide themselves into two. How can you divide yourself? Who I am, I am. That I am cannot be divided. So the sense organ cannot see I am. Sense organ cannot see I am. Yes. Then what is the way? Now see, the mind has a subtle way of knowing that you do not see through the sense organs. I told you we are going deeper. Pay attention, think of it. So, second way of knowing is not with the sense organ, but without the sense organ. What do you say? How it is possible? Do you know your thoughts? Yes. Do you know your feelings? Yes. Do you know your emotions? Yes. Do you know your mind is upset or happy? Yes. Do you see them all by the sense organ? No. So it is a subtle way of knowing subtle way of knowing. Do you see that? Subtle way of knowing. Did any sense organ help you to know your feeling and the thoughts and emotions? No. Still I know it. Oh, do you mean is this the way to know the real self? Examine. Examine. Let us understand. We are going deeper, step by step. Can mind know the real self? No. Answer is no. Why no? Because anything known by the mind, it has to be in front of the mind. Did you understand that point? Anything that the mind knows, that object, that person has to be in front of the mind. Either in terms of the feelings or in terms of the objects and people outside. So mind again says, bring the I am in front of yourself. So again the mind says, divide the I am into two, which is not possible. Where is the third way of knowing? All the windows are closed. It is raining outside. You hear the sound. So you put a logic, I hear the noise of the rain outside, and you get a knowledge by inference. What is inference? You put a reasoning, valid reasoning. And now you know it is raining outside without actually seeing the rain through your sense organs. Do you understand? Can I know myself through the inference? Third way of knowing. Third way of knowing means I know by reasoning. Right knowledge comes to me. I know my subtle feelings, which is in front of my mind, not seen by the sense organs. I know through the sense organ the objects. These three means are not able to see, to experience the real self. What is the fourth way? The Eastern wisdom. Fourth way, the Eastern wisdom. That is an instrument of knowledge. Return again. What did we discuss? I do not know. Become aware of my real self 24/7. We use the intellect. We purified the intellect and the mind In the intellect lives the self-awareness. The self-awareness separates what is real self and what is not. When it separates, it awakens to its own wealth, that is discernment. So, when it awakens to the wealth of discernment, the intellect is in switch-on mode. Switch-on mode gives me peace and happiness, love and wisdom here and now. Do you see that? It gives me peace and happiness here and now because it filters out the mind that is causing anxiety, blame, complaint, reaction, duality, conflict because of its search of peace and happiness outside. So that is a veil it has created. Very good. So what should we do? What we are doing? We are learning all the 40 steps to move into that state of consciousness. So we have talked in detail about the discernment in the intellect. Discernment, again, understand in a very simple way. That power of the discernment lives in the intellect. You are in the switch-on mode, and that switch-on mode says, this is my house, that is neighbor's house. This is my name, that is your name. Here I am, there you are, separate, at a distance, in the head, here and now. Dog cannot live into that separative consciousness. They are intelligent, they are programmed. Do you understand that? Their self-awareness is not fully developed. Our self-awareness is fully developed. What it means? I can observe. I can choose between the alternatives, and I can ask the intellect to stick on what is right and good. Are you getting it? Mind says, I am in stress. Intellect comes into the switch-on mode. It has an ability to observe. So it observes the stress, it experiences it at a subtler level. Same time, because the intellect is in a switch-on mode, it reminds you that real self is your essential nature, stress is not. Then the intellect realizes the mind is attached. It wants to see the world. It thinks, oh, that is one reason. That causes the mind to enter into a forgetfulness and crazy state. Mind is seeking happiness outside that cannot be attained. Oh, yes. So now what is happening? One alternative. Now you have one alternative. Mind continue to chase outside the things, or the intellect says, I know my real self is inside and peace and happiness inside. So you have the two alternatives. You choose the best. Choose the best. So what we have learned how to choose the best in the previous 9 steps. Then what happens when you choose peace and happiness? The mind loses its intensity of running outside, of pressing the peace in the objects and people outside. Mind loses its forgetfulness state. Means mind now loses, it is not in the switching off mode, it is in the switching on mode. So when it is in the switching on mode, then what happens? You are away, you are totally free from the stress and the anxiety here and now. Do you see the power of the step number 10? The step 10 gives the immense power or the wealth to the intellect, and these two wealth are discernment and dispassion. Take any scenario, in any moment in your life, you will discover the mind is in switch off mode. Means the mind is constantly juggling, running after the people, objects, and the things of the world outside, either from the past or for the future or in the present. First thing, it is running outside. First is, it is running outside, it is in switch off mode. Second is, it is running after an object, people, things, switch off mode. It is running in a hope to get peace and happiness from the world outside. Third, that makes the mind crazy. We lose awareness. So now we are living at a lower level of self-awareness like other animals. Even though we have an intellect to raise our level of self-awareness by observation inside, this is my home, that is neighbors. See that? And once you are in the switch on mode, you observe, mind, you're making me crazy, but I'm not entering into that switch off mode. I'm awakened. That is what is known as awakening. Why? To summarize, the world itself is a suffering. Nothing causes the suffering in the world. The world itself is a suffering. Why? The world is constantly changing. Changing means it never remains steady. So you are chasing pleasure in an object. The next time it gives you the pain. Why the world is changing? Today you have a suffering and mind is still stuck to the things outside. Tomorrow it will lead you to pain. Pain and the pleasure continues the cycle. What is the cycle of working, working and working? You are working as a doer and the enjoyer that we covered in the second step. So as long as you are working as a doer and the enjoyer in ignorance, it will cause problem. What is that problem? Suffering, pain, reaction, blame, complaint. So what will happen then? You will have strong likes and dislikes. You are again in the switch off mode. Strong dislikes and dislikes will cause a constant thinking in your mind. Constant thinking in the mind will disturb the equilibrium, the calmness and the peace that is already present in the mind. So you have trillions of thoughts of likes and dislikes that has created a veil. So what we learned, 3 steps. If I do not understand the principle, I should listen and learn again and again. And especially, in our tradition we say from the teacher. So you are listening again and again, learning again and again. Mind says, now I know the principle. That real self cannot be in the mode of stress and the suffering at any point of time. Oh, it is permanent? Yes. So the first problem is solved. But the second problem comes. No, I have lot of doubts. How it is possible? So you do not contemplate and reflect. So we simply remember all the principles. Simply remember the principle, let it be there in the intellect, and let it separate the rest of the thoughts from it. Intellect becomes clear. There is a clarity and conviction. And that clarity and a conviction removes the doubt. You see, I told you, if you have doubt, laziness, indolence, dullness, and it increases, mind says, who will do the practice? Why should I do it? You see, I gave you a very strong thought that people in the world are suffering. They are not doing any practice. I am doing the practice. I am already suffering. Why should I do it? It is the second problem. Third is, I don't experience. Let me practice, and practice. So you see, all the 3 issues in the mind is understood properly by the intellect. If you have doubt, ask me again and again. So this is the first talk of understanding the step number 10. The power of discernment and dispassion changes our life from the suffering to peace and happiness instantly, here and now. I am only saying because you are a seeker. I am saying to you because you have reached to the level of becoming a seeker. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. You see what we are saying? Om is a designator, is the name. The way it's your name, so your name, the moment I tell your name, it represents certain attributes, properties, characteristics, profession, occupation, location, etc., etc. The same way, Om represents what? Real self, source of all knowledge, source of permanent peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Where it is located? Deep inside the heart. When it is available? 24/7. Where it is available? 24 in all the locations. So once we live into that state, we realize the real self. The life never remains the same. Thank you.